Welcome to the video, everybody. It's July 18th, 2026. I hope you're doing great wherever you're watching from. This footage right here, CENTCOM absolutely decimating. This is a command node, communications towers, relays helping to control ships in the Strait of Hormuz, trying to exert their dominance on the Strait of Hormuz. A bridge being absolutely decimated, and we've seen up close footage of these bridges that have been hit. 3 main bridges being absolutely crushed. The control tower at Chabahar being completely decimated, and apparently decimated just means 10% destroyed, but I think this is 10% times 1,000 being destroyed, with that control tower falling all the way down, F-18s blasting off of the carrier, F-35s, F-15Es airborne, all in response to what the IRGC just did yesterday. A Thai-flagged cargo ship was in the Strait of Hormuz, innocent mariners, and the IRGC fired on it again. Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps generals trying to assert their extortion of that international waterway, and then the US military blasts fighter jets into Iranian airspace for 7 straight nights. Now, the strangulation is in full effect with the naval blockade and the airstrikes, $500 million a day being squeezed out of the Mullahs, and this is showing that they're in full panic mode and why they're continuously trying to hit these ships in the Strait of Hormuz. It's all they have left. And they're saying they have the ability to launch drones from inside the country. Likely that's why we're seeing more and more strikes. Like this right here, strikes inside of Iran. One of the biggest explosions we've seen yet. This is likely ballistic missiles being completely destroyed, the storage facilities for those. When you see like the little firework effect coming off, that's typically rocket propellant that's being blown up. And something this big, so seeing this big of an explosion, all of this would be inside of hundreds of ballistic missiles if our military wasn't taking action right now. And speaking of those ballistic missiles, Iran is arcing them right now into Kuwait, Bahrain, Jordan, Qatar. Basically, none of them are hitting, but a few lucky ones are getting through, with reports coming in that they got a hit on an oil depot in Kuwait near or on a US base. But they're launching a lot, and a very minimal amount is getting through. They even launched 111 at the USS Abraham Lincoln, and all of them were shot down. And you've asked me before, how are they still launching these missiles? Well, they were given pallets of cash over past administrations, 1.4 billion alone just in cash, not to mention direct bank transfers. And they basically have taken all of that money, as well as the illicit money they make from their shadow oil sales, and they just buy ballistic missiles, drones. They built their navy to be a proxy force, all based off that illicit oil money sales and the past administrations that have given Iran money to build these ballistic missiles. But luckily we caught it in time. Even Palmer Luckey had a great quote where he talked about the way that Iran was building up their ballistic missile stockpile. And at a certain point, when they have a certain amount of these ballistic missiles, there's going to be nothing that the US could do at all. Because if they have 10,000 of these things, then you can't have any bases in the area. You can't even operate in the area. Not to mention that their range would increase and they'd easily be able to hit Europe, maybe even Diego Garcia. So that's why action has to be taken now. It's just a wild situation for Iran because they can't adhere to any deal. And why is that happening? Well, I want to bring you in on a little something that I've found. Turns out Agarachi, the guy who's like, we haven't even begun, while his ships are getting absolutely decimated, there's a reason why he's so hardline. Even though he looks like that little teddy bear, he's like, I'm just an Iranian teddy bear. I'm just here to give everyone hugs. Meanwhile, he's supposedly taking orders from Vahidi, the general who's in charge of the IRGC. And that's why Ghalibaf and the other people in the Mullah class want Agarachi out. They want him out, supposedly. But here's my theory too. They might act like that on the outside, but I think these are all one unit. And I think they're texting each other. You know, Vahidi's like, yo, Agarachi, you up? Agarachi's like, you know I'm up. You know, middle of the night, like, all right, cool. I'm gonna launch some more drones. Just pretend like you don't like what I'm doing and we'll look like we're good cop, bad cop. That's the kind of thing they're doing, I think. Again, it's all a deception campaign. When you think of Iran, what they do, they deceive their own population, right? With their AI videos, saying they're winning. It's all about deceiving their own population first so they stay in power. And then that just trickles over. That's the only propaganda that they have. So that just trickles over to them trying to deceive the West. And a lot of left-leaning news outlets in the West have picked up their rhetoric because it's pretty convincing. If you think about it, the way that they've spun it, it's called an information operation. and they've co-opted certain news agencies in the West to make it look like, oh, they're just the good guys. They just want to give all their people cotton candy and candy canes and everything's beautiful. That's what they want to present. And here's why. So even Ghalibaf, he was the leader of the aerospace forces in Iran. So he was a hardline IRGC dude himself. And then he just transitioned into politics. So all these top IRGC guys, it's like a revolving door, whether they go into politics or stay in the IRGC. So my opinion is that Vahidi, Agarachi, Ghalibaf, Pezeshkian, it's all the same octopus. It's all of that same multi-headed monster that's just trying to control Iran and keep the regime in power. So we're going to get into all these strikes, the latest of what went on and the cracks forming within the regime, and then stay for the global roundup section because some wild things are happening. I mean, Cuba, now combat operations are on the table to happen in Cuba. We're going to cover that. Also, Ukraine absolutely unleashed on a Russian port. We're going to watch some of that battle footage. This is a little clip of it right here. I mean, just wild how big this battle was and how hard Ukraine is hitting these Russian ports. And then the Anduril Fury drone launched an AMRAAM. So we're going to watch that. We're going to get into all that in the global roundup section. That's about 3/4 of the way through the video. So stay around for that. So when it comes to flying fighter jets in combat, it really came down to reaction speed and being ready for the unknown, being ready for the unexpected. That's why I created maxafterburnerenergy.com, because I wanted to bring a system. I wanted to bring a drink that was built around a system that gives you the ability to have fighter pilot focus in your daily life. That's why we trademarked our blend of energy that's called Fighter Pilot Focus Blend. Cytocholine is a part of that, and it's a powerful brain nutrient that boosts acetylcholine levels, enhances memory, focus, and mental clarity while supporting faster information processing. It also helps protect brain cells from damage. So whether it's cognitive decline or just needing to be sharper in your daily life, these drinks will help with that. And I'm so proud to bring it to you. Formulated by fighter pilots, we've got Bunker Buster Berry, Lightning Lemonade. I think you'll really love the packaging on these. But here's the deal. We're right now in the final stages of getting the formula the exact way that we want it. So head to maxafterburnerenergy.com and just sign up for our email list. And then you'll be notified when the drinks are ready to ship. It's totally free to sign up for the email list. And we've got merch coming extremely soon. Check out this A10 shirt. I'm so excited about this A10 shirt. This is going to be some of the merch that should be dropping here within the next couple weeks. So sign up for the email list because you'll get discounts on the energy drinks and on the shirts. Head to maxafterburnerenergy.com. Thanks for the support on the energy drinks, guys. I think you'll really love them, and I think they'll be a big benefit to you. And here's exactly what's happened. So IRGC is opening up on container ships in the Strait of Hormuz, even just yesterday launching a projectile, disabling it, and then posting footage, which they said was one of their drones. We don't know for sure if it was or not. They're claiming it was. Likely this is done with Mosquito Fleet, fast attack craft, or drones, and they're going to keep trying to get those lucky jabs in with their drones. Also, their ballistic missiles and drones supposedly targeting Kuwait, hitting that oil location near a US base. And CENTCOM answered very decisively. They said CENTCOM continues to hold Iran accountable at the commander-in-chief's direction while fully enforcing a naval blockade against Iranian ports. More than 50,000 American service members are operating across the Middle East and remain vigilant, lethal, and ready. And then I want to share this with you. So the fact that CENTCOM keeps mentioning that 50,000 number, does that mean that there's some sort of ground campaign on the table? Well, here's an interview that President Trump did with Yazd on Fox News. Yazd asked, "Are you ruling out a ground campaign in a limited capacity?" President Trump responded, "I don't want to say that either, but I would say no if I thought it was appropriate. Sometimes you need a ground campaign. But we have other people that will do the ground campaign for us, but we already hit Karg Island, as you know, twice, even 3 times. So there you go. There's other people that would do the ground campaign for us. So I want you to zone in on that. We're going to get into that a little bit in this video, but at the end of the day, when it comes to a ground campaign, it doesn't necessarily have to be US forces. We can arm the Free People of Iran, Kurds, other militias, other people that could go in and just absolutely cut off certain towns in Iran and start the resistance, where you basically seize one town and then you start building from there. You make that town a rebel town, and then you allow that town to expand into the population, potentially even with air support, other means to help protect the rebels that could rise up. So we're going to get into that a little bit in this video. And then I got a video where I asked Mike Baker, former CIA agent, how this would actually go down. That'll likely drop tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. But basically, the IRGC came to the Gulf last night, ready to go all night, and then CENTCOM brought 7 nights in a row of airstrikes decimating the IRGC. I think CENTCOM has a little more stamina in this case. So let's talk about the flow of how it goes down stepping to the F-15E or the F-18 for these strikes. So you talk to the weapons officer, you talk to intel, you get a full brief on the target package, what you're hitting, in what order, and what the adversary's options are to respond to you. Because the reason you sequence targets matters more than people realize. If you take down their communications first, their response is degraded before the missiles are even off the rail. And this looks like exactly what CENTCOM is doing over 7 nights. So they targeted command and control. Subsequent nights hit logistics, storage, maritime interdiction nodes, F-15Es dropping 5,000-pound bunker buster bombs. I mean, just wild. 2,000+ pound bombs hitting bridges and infrastructure, control towers, and now we see a huge focus on cutting off all the supplies that are going to Bandar Abbas. But here's a piece that strategically matters. The IRGC is getting absolutely crushed in the Strait of Hormuz as far as their headquarters. So not only the places where they communicate, but the places where they're actually operating out of right now. Who knows, some other units potentially teamed up with the Kurds or others could be going in at any time, and that keeps the IRGC constantly guessing. But you can see right now that the US is now targeting and doubling down on military targets. So it looks like when the MOU was signed, the US had hit about 80% or so, maybe a little bit more, of military targets inside of Iran. Now, the remaining 20+% are being struck. And what could come next are the bridges that we're seeing being hit, even though you could argue those are sort of a military target as well, because they're transiting military hardware across the bridges, but that goes into civilian infrastructure, energy infrastructure, and actually taking down the ability of the IRGC to enact war altogether. So I kind of think it was an orchestra, the way this was executed, with President Trump saving some of these military targets, giving the IRGC the ability to actually keep this all from happening with the pressure valve release of signing the MOU, trying to get them to the table, and then them showing the world that they just can't be trusted and they absolutely cannot be negotiated with. Like, the IRGC is so unpredictable and hard to work with. They're so crazy. They're like that guy that orders the pizza 15 minutes before New Year's and then it arrives like 20 minutes later and he's like, I'm not paying for this. I ordered this a year ago. So the IRGC's doctrine in this phase is clear. If they can't stop CENTCOM's air campaign, they'll try to make the regional cost high enough to pressure the Gulf states into pressuring Washington. But what we're seeing right now is the Gulf states are actually pressuring Washington to finish the job. All the reports I'm seeing are saying that the Gulf partners want to finish this and they want to end this. So the IRGC's entire operational model for the Strait, it includes shore-based infrastructure, radar sites, communication nodes, and missile storage facilities, fast attack boat staging areas, and those are all being crushed right now. Now you made it to the global roundup, my friends, so let's cover some wild things that are going on around the globe. Anduril's YFQ-44A Fury, the collaborative combat aircraft program, fired a live AIM-120 AMRAAM air-to-air missile over the Mojave Desert on July 10th, the first time an American autonomous drone has ever pulled the trigger on a real air-to-air weapon. A human issued the command, the AI executed the full engagement sequence. So wild just to see this happening. Basically, we've got Terminators in the sky now. And then the Space Force Chief Nominee, Lieutenant General Douglas Scheiss, told the Senate Armed Service Committee this week that China's counter space capabilities are advancing, and this is exact words, at a breathtakingly fast pace, that Beijing has already built attack chains to track US carrier strike groups from orbit, and that a $71.1 billion Space Force budget is exactly what we need to counter it. China went from 128 satellites in 2015 to 1,189 today, 927% increase, with more than 500 of them ISR capable, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance for you acronym lovers. And then Ukraine's operation just struck a port, and this port, Novorossiysk, look at this strike happening right here. You can see how many tracers are absolutely just trying to strike these Ukrainian drones, showing how nervous Russia is about these Ukrainian drones. I mean, it's just wild to see. And then they launch a missile, likely trying to hit some sort of surface vessel that's coming in to strike the port. But the fact fact that Ukraine's able to do this on this level is just incredibly impressive. And then now it looks like the Pentagon is presenting military options for Cuba to President Trump, including a potential air assault by the 101st Airborne Division, the Screaming Eagles. This Army unit is specifically trained for this kind of mission. No operation has been authorized yet, but there's planning sessions happening right now. So I'll keep you posted as that develops. And that brings us to the strategic analysis 40 chess section. So here's the board. The IRGC's stated goal is to close the Strait of Hormuz, bleed the Gulf states, and pressure Washington into lifting the blockade and returning to the negotiating table on terms favorable to Tehran. Snowball's chance in hell of that happening. But their actual goal is to survive long enough for American political will to fracture. The same playbook that's worked against Western powers for years, because they know we have 4-year election cycles and they're just trying to wait it out. So looks like President Trump and this administration is aware that they're just trying to tap along as they do. That's why we're seeing absolute crushing of the Iranian regime happening right now, plus $500 million a day being bled out of people's banks like Pezeshkian, watching their economy completely come apart, watching their ability to control certain towns that were once left off the targeting list. The bridges were once left off the targeting list, but not anymore. So what do I think will happen from this? I think more of a fracture within the leadership itself, potentially even Vahidi and other leaders, other layers of these leaders being taken out. That could be an option we see as well. And that's likely why Iran's not striking Israel right now at all, because they know that Israel could, boom, in the snap of their finger, eliminate pretty much all of these leaders. So what do you think happens from here, guys? Do you think we just see continued strikes from CENTCOM for the next couple weeks? Do you think the IRGC has been degraded enough to stop hitting the Strait of Hormuz in a week or so from now? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to read what you have to say, and I really appreciate all the comments that are flooding in. And then remember, head to maxafterburnerenergy.com. Just sign up for our email list. It's totally free, and you'll get discounts when our energy drinks drop and when our merch arrives. Thanks so much for watching, guys. This is Ryan, also known as Max Afterburner, signing off.